so much for tuning in. This is a webinar on study skills. This is actually session 3. If you would like to go back and listen to session 1 and 2, you can. Or you can stay tuned and keep on listening to this third session, which will cover some academic skills, touch on goal setting, and also give you a base and a little bit of a foundation regarding mindfulness. My name, for those of you who didn't listen to the first 2 webinars, is Miss Buoniconti, and I am a DePaul University graduate student. I'm pursuing my master's degree in counseling with a concentration in school counseling. I'm a former elementary school teacher, so I actually taught 2nd grade for the last 6 years, and this year I'm currently working as a high school counselor intern. So here's our agenda today for this webinar. In just a moment on the next slide, you're going to see a pretest, and so I'm going to ask for you to go ahead and click on the link and please take the pretest. And then we're going to cover again some academic skills, goal setting, and mindfulness. And then at the end of the presentation, I will ask you to please help me out by taking the post test so I can see what you've learned. So on this slide, we have the pretest. And the pretest will be confidential, and if you can just click on the red underlined word here, it will actually take you to a Qualtrics survey, and it will take just a minute or so to complete. And again, your responses will be kept confidential, and the point of the survey is just for me to know what you already know about these topics, and at the end of the presentation to see what you've learned. Thank you for taking the time to take the pretest. So on this slide, we're going to be talking about some academic skills, including GPA. So your GPA stands for your grade point average. And again, it's really just that. It's an average or the mean of how you're doing overall in all your classes. Okay, so we're going to talk about what's your school's scale for GPA. Are you out of a 5.0 or a 4.0 scale? And are there any exceptions, meaning classes that don't count towards your GPA that still are on your transcript that you're still enrolled in, maybe such as physical education? So my high school is on a 5.0 scale. So that means an A earned in a class is worth 5 points. A B is earned would be worth 4. A C would be worth 3 points, a D would be worth 2, and an F would be worth 1. And I have a little asterisk by 1 because technically if you fail a class, even though it counts towards your GPA, you would need to retake it to earn that credit. So that's why we have a 1 there. It's almost like it counts as a 0, so we don't want any Fs. So in order to calculate your GPA, what you would do is list all of the classes out, the names of them that you are enrolled in. So let's say you're taking 7 classes: English, math, science, social studies, physical education, we'll say a language like Spanish, and a fine arts like choir. Okay, so you're in those 7 classes, you're going to list out your 7 classes. Then you're going to list out the grade that you've earned in each of those classes. So at my school, if you earn an A, it's worth 5 points. So any of those classes you earned an A, you're going to put a 5 next to them. A B, a 4 would go next to them, and a C, a 3. A D would be 2, and F again would be 1. So then what you're going to do is if you're enrolled in 7 classes, and all of them count toward your GPA, you're going to add up those 7 numbers, get your total, and divide by 7. That's going to be your average or the mean, and so that would be what your GPA is. Now at my school, if you are in PE, you still want to do well. It still shows up on your transcript whether you earn an A, B, C, D, or an F. However, it does not count towards your grade point average. So what you would do is add up 6 classes, get the total, and divide by 6. Okay, another exception might be if your school has weighted GPA, and if you are in an AP or honors class, that might count for more than 5 or 4 points. So for example, at my school, if you earn an A in an AP class, it really counts as 6 points. A B would be 5, a C would be 4, and then D and F are actually still 2 and 1. So if you earn an A, B, or C in an AP or honors class, you get an extra point added into your GPA. So some students at my school actually graduate with above a 5.0. Now, if you are a mostly B student, you can expect your GPA to be around a 4.0. If you get mostly C's, it would be around a 3.0. If you're an A student, get mostly A's, your GPA would be around a 5.0. So that's kind of how you calculate GPA. Now I think we're ready for this slide. So this slide's also continuing to talk to us about academic skills. I am currently a student at DePaul University, so have DePaul represented on this page. Woo-woo. So I want to point out, since originally these webinars were created for 9th grade students, that your high school transcript is really a fresh start. So whatever you did in 8th grade, 7th grade, whatever you did in junior high, middle school, elementary school, it is almost like it doesn't exist. Okay, if you worked really hard, that might be sad to hear and you did well and you're proud of yourself, but I have faith that you'll continue to do so here in high school. Okay, if the opposite was true, maybe you weren't so proud of what you did in junior high or you think you can do better, then that's good news, because high school, again, it's a fresh start. So your transcript is actually the list. We'll talk about it a little bit more on the next slide, but it'll be the sheet of paper that lists the classes you took, the grades you earned, the credits, okay, and your GPA, your grade point average, which is what we just talked about. And so your transcript is, if you're applying to college after high school, what colleges will see. They'll look at your transcript and they'll look at your test scores and your extracurriculars and a few other aspects when they're deciding if they want to admit you to their university. And so what's interesting is, and many freshmen don't know, is that colleges will actually only see your first 3 years of high school. They'll see freshman year, sophomore year, and junior year, because at the beginning of senior year, and that's actually when you're applying to college. And since hopefully you'll be done applying to your colleges by Halloween, by the end of October, you will not be done with your first semester of senior year. So colleges will not see those grades. So you really want to do well your first 3 years. And then, of course, continue to do so your senior year. Because when you're all done with senior year, then colleges, the college that you've committed to, will ask for you to send your final transcript, that final record. So then they will look at what you did your senior year of high school. Okay? And some colleges actually ask senior year for a mid-year report. So they'll want to see how you're doing halfway through the year. So on this slide, we're going to talk about requirements. And so for my high school, which is a high school in Illinois, those are the list of requirements that you need to graduate. So you need 4 years of English, 3 years of a math class, 2 years of science, 2.5 of social studies, because that also includes a semester, which is the 0.5 of civics. You need 4 years of PE, which includes 1 semester of health. And you need 2 years of fine arts classes from 2 different categories. Now you will see that language is listed with a 0 and an asterisk by that. And that's because in order to graduate from high school, you don't have to take a language, at least from my high school. However, when you're applying to colleges, some colleges would like to see you take a language class. And so here in Illinois, out of the 12 public universities, only 2 require that you have 2 years of language to be admitted. So if you are looking at going to school in Illinois and you didn't take a language in high school, there are plenty of options, but it's a good rule of thumb if you're in a language class and you're liking it, to stick with it for 2 years, because then you would be covered. I know, for example, I took 4 years of the same language in high school, and when I went to college, then I didn't have to take any language in college. So not only was I admitted into the university, I didn't have to take language classes and pay for language classes since I had already taken them in high school. Okay, so that's kind of how that requirement works. Now, those are just the requirements to graduate high school. If you are looking at especially a competitive university, then they might encourage you to take 4 years of all of your core classes. So that would be 4 years of English, math, science, social studies, and some schools might even like to see several years of language. If you are interested in applying to a West Coast school, like a school in California, then they actually do have some requirements regarding fine arts, so you would want to look at that as well. Now on the right hand side, you can see that we have credits listed out. And I just talked about how credits work at my school. So on student schedules, they actually see 10 different hours listed, even though we're not in school for 10 full hours a day. And that's because our lunch periods have adjusted the way that the schedule looks. And so classes can be clustered, longer, shorter, with more numbers by them, just based on lunch, right? So you actually are taking, at least students at my high school, 7 classes. There's 7 periods a day, even though there shows up to be 10 on their schedule. Now let's say you're taking 7 classes and 1 class is a study hall, and then that counts as 6 classes towards your GPA, 6 credits. And if you were to do that for all 4 years, 6 times 4 is 24. So 24 credits is the lucky number to graduate. So you could still graduate high school even if you took a study hall every single year. Okay, so most students will take 7 classes. Okay, let's say you don't take a study hall, you'll take 7 classes that count towards your GPA. 7 times 4 would be 28. So most students graduate with 28 credits, so they're well above that 24 minimum. All right, here's an example of a transcript. You can see that the name has been cut off, all confidential information is removed. I did just want to point out that if you transfer, that's on your transcript. If you transfer or switch schools, you will see a T next to the classes that you took at a different school. You can see that your transcript is broken down by year, and it lists all the classes you're enrolled in, your first and second semester grades, and the total credit off to the side. So again, a year-long class is worth 1 full credit. Okay, it also will have your grade point average listed on the bottom. Okay, now at my school, if you take an honors or an AP class and you earn an A or a B in that class, it can actually be worth, instead of an A being worth 5 points, an A would be worth 6 points. If you earned a B, instead of being 4 points, it would count as 5 points. All right, and so a C, instead of being worth 3 points, it's going to count as 4 points. All right, and D and F stay the same. You don't get that boost for a D or an F. But for an A, B, or C, in an honors or AP class, you actually get a little boost in your GPA, and that is called your weighted GPA. So even though at my school we have a 5.0 scale, some students actually earn above a 5.0 on their weighted GPA. When you're applying to colleges, they usually will ask for your weighted GPA, but we, on your transcript, also list your unweighted GPA. So if you remove those boosts, so let's say you got a B in an honors class, okay, or a C, then that's going to change your GPA. So at the bottom of your transcript, you'll see your cumulative, your overall GPA for weighted and unweighted, and also all the credits that you took over your 4 years. Okay, now remember that colleges will just see your 9, 10, and 11 of the school year. So they will maybe just see for senior year the classes, the course name, but not the semester 1 or 2 grades or the credits. Okay, and you can tell this is a really high achieving student. We pulled their transcript. They're really just rocking. And right now they are in the they're in the 2nd semester of their senior year since their grades are not currently listed yet. All right, so that was a little bit more about academics. Our next topic that we'll be covering is goal setting. And so I'm sure that you're familiar with SMART goals, but I just want to remind you that when you are setting a goal, you don't want to have an outlandish goal. You want it to be really SMART. And so a way to ensure that your goal is SMART is to follow this template. So the S stands for specific. So what is it exactly that you want to do? You want your goal to be very specific. You want your goal to be measurable. So how will you know when you've accomplished this goal, when you've reached it? So specific, measurable. The A in SMART goal stands for achievable. So is it in your power to actually accomplish this goal? Okay, can you attain this goal, achieve this goal? The R stands for realistic. So again, can you realistically make this goal happen and accomplish it? And the T stands for timely or time sensitive, time bound. So when do you want this goal to be accomplished by? So if your goal has these things in it, if it's really specific, if you can measure it, if it's achievable and attainable, if it's realistic and timely, then you have a much higher chance of making this goal become reality, right? Help making this goal be achieved. So when people set New Year's resolutions, oftentimes they say, this year I want to eat healthier. Well, what's problematic about that goal, it's a great goal to have, but what's problematic about it is that it's not specific. It's not telling us, well, what does eating healthier look like? It's not measuring. How do you know if you've really eaten healthier? Okay, it's not achievable. How do we know if you've accomplished that goal? Okay, it might be realistic, right? But and it might not be super timely. Maybe they're not breaking it up by saying, I will know that I've eaten healthier by being specific. So every week I want to have at least one salad. So then I know it's specific. I can measure it if each week I've had a salad. It's obtainable, it's realistic, and it can be timely. So really trying to make sure that your goals are SMART can help them become more achievable. So those are SMART goals. So when you're setting goals for yourself through high school, maybe it's regarding sports, maybe it's regarding your academics, maybe it's regarding obligations you have at home or with your family or with work, try to make your goals SMART. All right, now we're on to our last topic, which is probably my favorite topic so far, and that is mindfulness. Okay, so I'm going to start actually by having your eyes look at that image on the right. So, cute little graph, and you can tell the human has a lot of different things going on in his or her mind. So his or her mind is full. There's a lot of information, a lot of things that person is trying to process and think about all at once. Versus the dog is mindful and just thinking about the present, what's in front of him, in the here and now, in that moment. So my challenge for you is to try to be mindful and not have your mind full of things. So you can accomplish this through grounding. So mindfulness is all about, as the slide says, using your breath, staying in the present, but a lot of it has to do with grounding. And so when you want to have maybe a mindfulness minute, for example, you are going to ground your body. So if you're sitting in a chair, it might be your feet pressing against the floor. It might be your hands, feeling your arms pressing down on your desk. It might be feeling your back pressing against your chair. Right? So you are grounding, physically grounding your body. The next word I've listed there is anchor. All right, so what that is if you are trying to participate in a mindfulness activity or breathing or anything like that, which we'll go over in a minute, then you have an anchor. And what that means is that you have an image or something that you can think of when you find yourself wandering. So for me, I actually, since I love the water, I picture a real anchor, picture the anchor of a boat. And so when my mind starts thinking about a million things, in order to bring myself back in the present moment, I just picture the anchor of a boat. Okay, as we talked about before, again, mindfulness is all about using your breath. Right? There's a lot of things you can't control, especially as a student, especially when you're in class, but you always have your breath with you. And it's about staying in the present. So trying not to worry about the past, trying not to worry about the future, but being in the present moment. The last bullet I have listed on this slide says the 5-to-1 ratio rule. Okay, so for every negative thought you have, I want you to try to combat it. I want you to try to think of 5 other positives. All right, and what's really interesting is that your brain actually goes negative 80% of the time. So we are more likely to have negative thoughts. And so that's why I really want to challenge you that every time you're having a negative thought, to try to think of at least 4 to 5 additional positive thoughts, right? Things that are going well. And again, that can be at times a hard thing to do. All right, so you've heard of mindfulness, but what does that mean? How can you apply this? What are some techniques? So I've listed just a few. Here are some of my favorites. And the first one I've listed there is 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And this is really great because let's say you're walking down the hall in between your classes. You can do this technique to stay in the present. So you can think of 5 things that you see. So you're going to use your 5 senses here, 1 sense for each of these. So 5 things you see. So I normally don't see these 5 things in the hallway, but I'm going to stay in the present moment. I'm going to point them all out and see them now. Okay, and you don't have to say it out loud, but you're just listing them in your head. 4 things you can touch. 3 things you can smell. 2 things you can hear. 1 thing you can taste. Okay, so you're using your 5 senses and trying to point out those using your senses to point out different things that you hear or see that normally you might not. If you're really thinking about all those different things, then you're probably not, again, worrying about your science test tomorrow, right? So it's all about, again, staying in the present moment. The next technique listed is called 4 square breathing, and the visual to the right on the slide actually explains what that is. So this is really great. This technique I really enjoy. Again, try some of these, but try to figure out which ones work for you. This one I really like because you can actually draw a square on the palm of your hand or with a paper and pen on your, like on a test or on a piece of paper when you're taking notes. And just again, a really quick, easy strategy. So you are going to breathe. So you're going to hold for inhale for 4 seconds. And you're going to hold your breath for 4 seconds. You're going to exhale, open mouth exhale for 4. And then you would hold for 4. And I like to do that 4 times. So for me, it's all about, again, that repetition. And once I realize that I'm, really stressed or my heart's racing or I'm nervous about something, this is a strategy that I can do anytime, anywhere. So that one is called 4 square breathing. The next one I do not like, but a lot of people like. So again, it's just all about finding what works for you. The next one's called triangle breathing, and you can just Google triangle breathing. There's many different YouTube videos, and it's all about breathing in and out with like a guided video. The next strategy there is called body scan. So all you're doing there is kind of scanning what part of your body you're carrying your stress in. And then to go along with that, you can actually tense your muscles when you're doing a body scan. So you might start at your toes. You might hold your toes and tense them as hard as you can for 4 seconds or 3 seconds, and then let it go. And you might move up to your knees and your quads and tense and let it go. And then your back and your shoulders and your arms and your fingers and let it go. And then your head and your face. And then you might go back down your body. So that one, it's all about just realizing how your body's feeling, tensing your muscles, and releasing that tension. Okay, the next one is called ABCs of gratitude. So all you're going to do is go through each letter of the alphabet and name one thing that you're grateful for that starts with that letter. And it doesn't have to be anything super complex. For A, I might just be grateful for air, right? I might be breathing in fresh air and grateful that I have that. The last one is a gratitude journal. So it doesn't, again, have to be super complex. You could just write down every morning or every night one thing that you are thankful for. All right? One thing that even if you've had a horrible day or you feel like a lot of things are going wrong, well, what's one thing that's going right? Okay, so that you would actually get to write down in a gratitude journal. So those are some strategies and techniques. My goal would be for you to try one. So try one that maybe you haven't tried before. There's tons of information out there on the internet. There's different apps that you can use that are going to help with those things. So give one a try. If it doesn't work for you, then try a different one. Okay, and as I mentioned, here are some mindfulness apps: Calm, Insight Timer, Stop, Breathe, and Think, Headspace, and Mindful. And some of them you can have, some are completely free, like Insight Timer. Others you need like a subscription or to sign up for, but they usually give you a free week. So you could always check a few different ones out and see if you enjoy any of them. All right, so just again, a nice way to stay in the present moment, to stay nice and relaxed, and to engage in self care to take care of yourself. All right, so it's time to show what you know. It's time to show what you learned. So if you took the pre-test at this time, please click on the red underlined word here, which will take you to the Qualtrics survey, and that will be the post-test. And once again, that information will be kept confidential, but it definitely will help me improve my webinars in the future. So it would be really beneficial if you could take the post-test. And I would just like to thank you so much for taking the time to listen to these study skills webinars. I hope you found them useful and helpful.